notice the part of you that seeks a certain outcome, that wants the positive outcome. And I often teach what's called outcome independence. You're responsible for the effort, but not the outcome. And it's so freeing and liberating for man.
Amazon best-selling author and men's relationship coach Stuart Matola joins No Politics, where we chat about the common theme men have in unhappy relationships, and we discuss Stuart's book called Fixing You is Killing Me. So, let's do it.
Too many days in the darkness without a glimpse of the light. Running tired and broken and scared, but I swear I'll never give up the fight. I see you broken and beat, head pulled down over your eyes. Every part of you wants to surrender, but darling, you were meant to survive. With every star.
Stuart, thanks for coming on today, man.
Sure thing. Great to be here.
To start, Stuart, I jumping right into it. I ended up buying your book because I really wanted a good insight into your work, and I want to read an excerpt from it because I think it's so fitting, and it's from the beginning of it too that I think will really encompass the entire episode, because it really, like, it was such a hook. It got me even into your book as soon as I bought it too, which I love.
Awesome.
And here we go. This is a book about the holy grail of ever elusive happiness in long-term relationship. To have struggled in relationship is to be human. It happens to everyone. At its best, we grow wiser and happier and rise up from the struggle. At its worst, we find ourselves asking, is this it? This one person for the rest of my life? Often a barrage of other questions ensues. Do we even love each other still? Could I live without her? Could I be happy without him? And I have a feeling you probably gone through the best and worst part of it. Where did you get into this type of work, and when did this work start for you?
Sure. Specifically with the book, a lot of it came out of uncoupling from a 20-year marriage and all the trials and tribulations and mental spinnings in my head in that process.
I love it. You're talking right from experience then.
Yeah, on the top level, I can give you a little bit of backstory afterwards if you want, but I figure since you read a passage from the book, I can speak to that directly.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, having been married for 20 years, I was with my ex-wife for 25 years. And like I say in the book, I knew I still loved her, but at the same time, I had this internal voice that said, yeah, and I'm done with the contract of our relationship as it is, and which was, the structure of that contract was a marriage, and so there was a lot of internal spinning. Well, how can I leave the woman I love? How can I leave the mother of my child? How can I leave an individual who struggles with her health, who has chronic health issues? What kind of guy am I if I do that? And I talk a lot in the book about self-betrayal. And it's that space where you are no longer growing, experiencing what I call big love in a relationship. That doesn't mean everything's, puppy dogs and butterflies every day, but it means that if you work through conflicts and you have the skills to do that in a good way, you come out feeling like a bigger version of yourself through those conflicts. And it's not always going to happen, but let's say, 60-70% of the time, whatever it is, that relationship or marriage actually has you feeling expansive. And I call that, that big love. I don't want to make it hoity-toity or new agey, but I think people feel it in their gut and heart. Can I trust this person? Can I have an emotional and psychological home with them? And typically I am seeing a lot of men where they're not necessarily asking themselves that question, but they're having an unconscious experience of a no. I'm not feeling safe with this person. I'm not feeling a sense of a psychological or emotional home. And it's really giving me a lot of anxiety, fear, stress, and negative feedback. And it has me asking the questions that you spoke to when you read that first passage of the book, such as, this person for the rest of my life? Do I still love her? Do I want to be with him? And so the book is explicitly on that explicit crossroads that people reach in relationship, how I navigated it, and also universal lessons that I offer to the readers. Now, I often work with a lot of men who are not at that depth of crossroads. In fact, most of the individuals I work with are more in that, beginning phase of like, yeah, I really want to make things better.
Well, that's good. That's good that you're getting them at that phase, right? Rather than at the in that deeper stage.
Yeah, and that's, for a while I was working more at that deeper stage, and I found I couldn't be as effective. And at the end of the day, as a coach, I want to serve. I want to serve powerfully, and I want to have my clients benefit from the work we do together.
Yeah, is
And
that
I was much more effective in that space of wanting to improve the marriage than in the quote unquote crossroads.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's always good, and I'm glad that men are approaching you for this too, because I feel like men, there's a hesitancy to kind of reach out for help and communicate too. So I'm really relieved and happy to know that men are doing this. When men typically reach out to you, what are you seeing a common theme with them?
Yeah, tons of common themes. And it's funny because I have these check boxes on this form on my website, and some of them say like, walking on eggshells,
Yeah,
bullying, uh, fear of divorce, you know,
all those things come into
uh,
play.
you know, don't feel like I can't make, feel like I could never make her happy. These are pretty common symptoms. And there's an emotional environment out there that's not really spoken to because it doesn't fit the, the cultural narrative of men abusing women, the whole patriarchal narrative, which obviously has a lot of validity. But as I always like to say in my work, there's a both and here. There's a lot of guys getting beat up in the domestic realm, emotionally, verbally, especially in college educated couples.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I see a lot of that, especially in that realm, because the men tend to not be as classically masculine. So
Oh,
they're
I
going to
got
be
you.
less likely to just bite into her with his anger. He don't want to be that guy. Whereas I found that, and again, what do they say? All generalizations are false, including the one I just made. So I want to take it with a grain of salt, but we see there is some data to support that in college educated couples, 90% of the time it's the woman who initiates the divorce, whereas non-college educated couples, it's 60% that the woman's initiating the divorce. Well, why that difference? Because in more college educated couples, there's more women's empowerment. There's more like, hey, I'm not going to spend the rest of my life with an emotionally checked out dude.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times men who retreat, don't embrace their anger because they don't know how to use it effectively towards assertion. Okay. They often shut down from most of their emotions, and she experiences it as a checked out guy. And she's also more empowered. So she's, she may have her own career, more likely, or at least at a level at which she can provide or support for herself. Or she's in a situation where he's done really well and she knows, with a alimony arrangement or whatever, that it'll be fine. So spinning into a tangent there, that's the far end of the spectrum. I don't typically work a lot in that realm, but I work, again, most of my clients are college educated guys who've been successful in business, law, medicine, other realms. And they've had success in their careers and they feel like a failure at home, and they're
Yeah,
wanting to turn that around.
you had brought up emotionally checked out men. I think that being kind of a common theme after a while. I'm glad that they're approaching you. Why do you think they became emotionally checked out to a point? Because I feel like, especially in their careers, being very successful, they're probably extremely emotionally checked in with those careers. Why do you think it might not be the same at home?
Well, I'll give you two top level reasons. One is, you ever seen the YouTube video Tony Porter, the Man Box?
No, no, I'll have to look that up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically says us as dudes are raised with given permission to experience one emotion, which is anger. Tough guy, anger, you know?
That's interesting.
Whereas sadness, you're a wimp. Fear, you're a wimp. And joy, if it's too giddy and joyful, you're gay.
Yeah.
You know, and that was a message that a lot of men got for many, 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 many years, especially for guys who are over 40. The second part is at work, a guy is leveraging what's called transactional consciousness. Well, if I do A, I'll get B. I know it works. I've seen it work in the past. You know, if I pause to have the challenging conversations with my business partners at the right time, when they're level-headed, I can get the deal through, or whatever it is, you know. Whereas in a marriage, a man has to learn a whole different set of skills, which is called relational consciousness. And that's not I do A to get B. It's just I do B, and I'm authentic, and I'm vulnerable, and I'm caring, and I'm not, and I'm interested in you and your well-being, as opposed to just, you know, I need more sex. Well, a lot of times I'll coach a guy on the sex. I'll be like, well, sex is the top level symptom. What's underneath that? And then we get to aliveness.
Yeah.
Eros. Eros is that erotic intelligence, erotic curiosity. So where do you feel dead in your life, where instead you're dumping all that energy of feeling dead onto her and sexual desire, you know? So like, you know, how do you redistribute the energy that you're, you know, divorced from within yourself? That takes a relationally conscious mindset as opposed to a transactional. And so the Tony Porter Man Box and the difference between relational and transactional consciousness are my top, you know, headline answers about where guys struggle with their emotional intelligence and being checked out.
Yeah, being emotionally intelligent, do you because I feel like the times I've seen like couples argue or so, me being a man, I could kind of pick up on their facial expressions and know what they're feeling without them expressing it. And I feel like women are very, very good at being able to communicate because they're, I think, always thinking about emotions, and they become more emotionally intelligent because of that. So their way of communicating how they feel is, I think, clear. You know, in the famous arguments, it's always, you know, I feel A because of B and because you did C. And I think with men, do you find men are equally as skillful in communicating how they feel? Because I feel like a lot of the times it's not at all, and I see them a lot just making that first like comment and then realizing they just can't find the correct words to process during the argument to get out in a functionally driven way to communicate exactly how they're feeling, and then the shutdown comes. They turn their own computer off, basically.
Right, right. You definitely hit something big. I think, I mean, I actually just had a blog that I put out that referenced an article in Psychology Today, and it says male and female brains, are they wired differently? And the gist of the article is that what you're speaking to is, yes, men tend to struggle more with, you know, really subtle, nuanced, in-depth verbal communication, the type that has a guy feeling like she's talking circles around him. And he can't even remember the last thing he just said. And he's asking her, what did I just say? And Why is that? Well, a
Yeah.
lot of it has to do with the brain wiring, it's said that men are better at performing single tasks, whereas women are better at multitasking. Women are better at, attention, word memory, verbal abilities. Men are better at spatial processing and sensory motor activities. You know, those are vast generalizations, but we
This is
know
some truth. Yeah.
from the research that those things are true. And so the moment here for the man, and I love, can I curse on this?
Yeah. Yeah. You can say fuck, shit, whatever you want.
Yeah, I loved what Ken Wilber said. He is an international philosopher. He said that over thousands of years, or hundreds of years, thousands of years, men had two instincts. Okay, they didn't involve language. Fuck it or kill it.
Yeah. That's
You
a
know,
perfect way to, I mean,
right. And then women had another sense, which was relate to it, connect to it, and that was the evolutionary development of the family, of raising children. They had to connect with the children, etc. Obviously, that's all been flipped on its head in the last 70 years. But okay, what was the Women's Right Amendment? Was what, 1973 Equal Rights Amendment? And actually, as I don't remember my history, my politics, I don't
you're
think
good.
that actually went through. But anyway, as feminism came online, that challenged it. So suddenly guys have to learn the emote, the relate to it, if they're going to be in a successful marriage. And there's a moment at which, I love what Esther Perel says. She talks about author who wrote Mating in Captivity. She has a phrase called the I was struggle with this word, hegemony of talk intimacy, the domination of talk intimacy. And she explicitly says it puts men at a disadvantage. Everything's like the way that many women today feel closest through talking. And that can feel limited for a dude. He wants often touch, he wants touch intimacy. And it doesn't just mean sex, it means hugging, holding, feeling close physically, etc. And those natural differences are verified by the research on neurochemistry. So yes, a lot of my work is helping guys slow down the communication.
That's a good way to put it.
You're
Really is.
hooked, you're triggered. I have this video that says the one word that could save your ass when you're losing your shit with your partner, and the one word is pause.
Pause. Yes. Yeah.
Get
You
in
know,
between the circuitry of what's in your brain and what's coming out of your mouth. Pause before it comes out of your mouth. Because one of the greatest things we can do as guys is we can respond versus react. We become more trustworthy to our partner. We become more stable for her. The feminine can relax in the space of a responding masculine versus a reactive.
Yeah, to slow the pace down too. I've realized, a great point, because I've realized that myself when I've gone on to like job interviews in the past, and all it is you're just sitting across the desk and you have to sell that person. That communication is so key. And they're all, oftentimes there's a panel of people and they're all asking you multiple questions. So you have this sensory overload and you're trying not to slip up or goof, or have a facial expression or something that they don't think you're confident in it now. And I learned that just you don't have to respond as soon as that person has a period at the end of their sentence. You don't have to immediately. You could take 5 seconds and go, well, let me breathe, let me think, and then respond. There's no timetable.
I say notice the part of you that seeks a certain outcome, that wants the positive outcome. And I often teach what's called outcome independence. You're responsible for the effort, but not the outcome. And it's so freeing and liberating for man. I know I made a good effort. I know I spoke kindly. I know I spoke lovingly. Shit blew up on me still. Well, it was a good day for me, a tough day for the relationship.
That's a good way to put it. because I feel like as men, I can't speak for women, but as a guy, I am all about the outcome. And I
Yeah.
feel like we're always communicating in a way to reach the desired outcome, which you never want to get to the desired outcome with kind of selling something that you're not happy with or
Well, then you
into.
get into the classic patterns that I see with a ton of my clients: pleasing, that's self-betrayal; fixing, that's a big one that I struggle with, to be frank, and I'm working on that. Of course, I'm a fucking coach. Um, uh, Rescuing. There are all these things that are in the ethos of the masculine serve, or not really serve, but protect and provide. So we take protect and provide, we translate it into fix and rescue, and we create a shit show in our relationships because she doesn't want to be a project that gets fixed. How can you stand by her side, hear her, even if it seems a little crazy or you can't even follow the logic? Let go. That's her thing. Be at her side. I heard you say A, B, and C.
Yeah.
And then there's that pause. That pause between like, oh, okay, I'm not going to fix it. I'm just going to be with her here. And it can feel abstract. And, of course, every situation requires something different. And that's like, that's the, more samurai skill level. But at the end of the day, just to pay attention to yourself, notice what's going on inside of you, and get clear how it's impacting you and what you're bringing forward. And again, all of us, I mean, I call it the diz. I haven't heard that word said, but when you're in a relationship, it's very easy to be in the diz. Get dizzy, activated hook trigger. The diz I call the deep intimacy zone of relationship, because those hooks and triggers get more activated in that intimate relationship than anywhere else in your life.
That's a good that's a good point. With communication too, I was trying to break this down scientifically to see really why in arguments I feel like women make a lot of great points, and like I said before, with men just not being able to put those words to those emotions, because like you said, there's too quick. They got to have a pause. And in psychology, there's 4 types of ways people communicate in different ways. It's assertive, aggressive, passive, and passive aggressive. And out of those 4, you would think the people who tend to, I would say get the upper hand in discussions and in arguments are probably the assertive and aggressive communicators. And then the passive and passive aggressives probably don't, get too far in any of those discussions. And I think, all right, if that's true, where do men and women lie in that? And in my experience, I'm thinking, and just looking at myself, I tend to be a passive aggressive person. I think I'm probably similar with most men, because as soon as somebody starts talking, I immediately stop talking, and if they're talking over me, I stop, and I usually don't raise the voice or get emotional or anything like that. And then if you have a conversation over the course of like 15-20 minutes, I probably got in like maybe a couple sentences in comparison to longer paragraphs. And I think from my own experience too, just with dating and whatnot, I think there's more of and you might know more about this than I do in an actual marriage of somebody being assertive and aggressive. I would say, if you can just give some of your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I would say because women often feel more capable in the verbal realm, they can often get
that's a
more
good point.
assertive and aggressive than men.
Because of confidence,
Again,
probably too, right?
somewhat, or just a fluidity with words, etc. Again, I'm going to say this is outside of the classic patriarchal realm. These are college-educated men who are aware of the patriarchy, trying to do something different, but they just don't have a generative model of masculinity when it comes to relationship. They know what they don't want to be, but they have no idea how to be what they don't even know what they want to be half the time, because they just don't know what it looks like.
Yeah.
Which is a confident, calm, collected, relational man. And again, of course, I can say those 4 words on the top level, and there's a ton of inner dynamics and interdynamics with a partner to live that. And one thing I like to say is for couples, like notice how people don't do couples work until they're in trouble.
Yeah.
Like, there's no maintenance. Like, you got a car, you got to change the oil, you got to take care of it, change the tires. But in relationship, we don't do that. We don't do maintenance. What would maintenance look like? It means like once a week or whatever, twice a week. We're spending conscious time together. The phones are turned off. We're holding each other. We're maybe doing a simple reflexive listening. Hey, how's your day? Let's go a layer deeper into the heart zone instead of just reporting.
Yeah.
Speak about what I heard. Like, really conscious couple time. Even 30 minutes once a week is a
Like a
form of
like a
connection.
relationship meditation.
Yeah, somewhat. And I know that for many people that feels really contrived, unnatural. Why would I do that? Well, build some muscles there. Obviously, every day is a chance to build relational muscles as you know, have conflict or step in landmines, or you notice your partner looked at you funny, or why did she shake her head like that? Or what was that tone about? I mean, there's just so many moments where we can tap in. Now, the question is, what battles do we want to pick? Well, most people go pretty passive, which is an attitude of, well, you get what you get. She
Yeah.
is who she is. I am who I am. How can we switch into an active and more proactive stance towards relationship, which says, you know what? No, I don't want to live with I get what I get. I want to live with, I want to look at our shit, our problems, and I want to make this better. I want to, be actively involved. And I invite you as my partner to be actively involved as well. Let's go find a way in which we could do that. And obviously, in the internet, there's 1,000 different schools of thought on this. And
Yeah.
find ways that you can connect and try different things and fail and then try again. I love what Samuel Beckett said: fail, fail, and fail again better. I mean, just the whole idea of that, if we don't try these things, we're not going to learn and grow.
What would be some tactics you would like say this recommend to one of your clients, or even to somebody who's listening right now that's like, oh crap, that self-betrayal, I am definitely there right now. What would you say? All right, they're in a relationship, say they're married, say they're in a couple year relationship. How are you able to um kind of discuss it with them to where they feel confident, okay, this is the game plan of how to how
Well,
to
big part,
start. I'd say just start.
yeah, a big part is we're going to look at their shadows. So shadows are those parts of themselves that they hide and repress. So my classic example of shadow for myself was putting my needs in the closet. Like, I'm a dude, I'm cool, I don't got no needs. So I wouldn't ask my partner for what I needed, and so then her needs would dominate the relationship. And there was a lot of that going on in my marriage, and through years and years of doing men's work, going on retreats, sitting with mentors who understood that, hey man, you're living in an inner civil war here by shutting off your needs. Well, the reality is your needs got shut down when you were a kid. Parents were busy working. Your way of trying to get validation approval was to not be a burden on anybody. So I have to help a man get conscious of his unconscious programming. And that classic line of what Carl Jung said, you know, uh, until the unconscious becomes conscious, it will run your life and you will call it fate.
Oh, I have heard that quote. That is a very good line. That is a very good
Yeah,
line.
so we're doing a lot of shadow work, looking at the unconscious stuff, and then looking at how that actually trickles into his interactions with his wife or partner as he becomes more aware of the landmines that he steps on, and often due to unconscious programming, and how to start to reverse that. Now he's suddenly in a position to have a better relationship because he's in more generative, productive behaviors. So, for example, instead of pleasing, okay, I want to make her happy, but I also know, from some of my work with Stuart, that her happiness is an insurmountable and an impossible task to achieve. So what I can actually do instead is focus on my own happiness, my own confidence, and now bring a more stable, confident, loving, relational version of myself to this relationship. And then I get to see how she responds differently to that version of me, the guy who doesn't just shut down when she gets, heightened in her volume, or when she gets activated. The guy who says, pause, I need to set a boundary here, sweetie. I want to hear what you have to say, but how you're saying it, it's not helping me stay connected to you. In fact, it's alienating me. And so how can a guy say that kindly, lovingly, and with strength and assertion? I often say caring, assertive, and vulnerable are three magical traits for a man to aspire towards. And a mentor of mine taught me them, and they're the exact opposite of what's called the drama triangle, which you may be familiar with. It's a way of interacting with a partner where you're both stuck in a behavioral pattern that causes just drama. And so in the drama triangle, it's perpetrator, rescuer, and victim. Okay, so people who feel like victims, then they go and perpetrate, right? I got to
Yeah.
get some power. And then people who perpetrate, they feel shitty afterwards, and then they drop into rescuer. Like, oh, I want to fix this mess I created. So people just will toggle between those 3 points. And the opposite is instead of rescuing, which is care taking, go to caring. I show my care, but whether you're okay or not, that's not on me. That's on you, because you're an adult.
Yeah.
And from victim, I go to vulnerable. And I often say you can't be vulnerable unless there's safety. Safety requires boundaries. You got to set context, because a lot of times you can say to a partner, I don't want you to agree with me with what I'm going to say. I want you to just repeat back what I heard, so that I know that I've been heard. That's all I need. So that's a way of setting a container, a boundary, so that I can now be vulnerable. And that
Yeah, you
statement
you,
might
you
be
can see the domino effect. I mean, there's so much depth. And like you said before,
right.
that depth is really deep. Where I mean, it's not just,
Yeah.
oh, do you feel safe? It's, well, what's that person's boundaries, and then you have to respect those boundaries. I mean, that
Well,
is,
you have to like set a container and see if they're willing to even agree to that, boundary that you're putting out there. But I wanted to say the last one of perpetrating, which is being aggressive, to flip to assertive. Assertive is there's not as much charge. It's more like, hey, I'd like it if you consider my words that I'm about to say, and this is really important for me to be heard on. That's a very different thing than, you never hear me, you're crazy, you always are, throwing shit at me.
yeah.
So anyway, we're getting into the nitty gritty here a little bit, but that
No, it's
probably also answers your question a little bit about, what it looks like outside of those top level ideas. And one of the biggest ones I always say is, if you remember these 5 words, be relational versus be right. If your listeners can take anything, it's just
it
that.
would be that.
Like,
Yeah.
nobody gets anywhere in arguments in a marriage or long-term partnership by being right. You just don't. It's the ego, and it's not relational. It's what's called me consciousness instead of us consciousness.
Yeah, because
Right.
it's that third,
Mhm.
kind of the third person there, which is
Third
the
entity.
relationship. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and just to be clear, bro, that's not meaning if you focus on the us all the time that you're going to have the perfect relationship, but you're going to be in a much better position to improve on the problems that are going on.
Yeah. No, that's a perfect point. I mean, I think you hit it absolutely perfect. I was actually just getting like lost in what you were saying, relating it to relating it to myself. I was like, oh man, I remember this time, I remember that time. I couldn't help but think too, before we wrap up here. Have you explaining this to a client and talking about their shadows and things, and especially it brought up a point in my mind when you had said, it's bringing up your needs out of the closet that you put there. I can't help but think, I mean, have you ever had a client go, oh my gosh, if only I could go back and not from back to day one when I met this person, and not just put my needs in the closet in substitution of the pursuit and just of the woman. Because I think as guys, we're so, especially in the beginning, we're so obsessed with the pursuit and the hunt and the trying to
Win her.
persuade them and win them, that we just throw all of our needs and expectations and everything away, and then we kind of begin the relationship without this with this expectation to them that just they're the only ones that matter. They're the only needs that need to be met are them. I mean, have you ever had a client just kind of have that realization and go, oh shit, wait a second, I think
Yeah.
I did that?
Yeah, but I'll always say, instead of shaming who you were, or Monday morning quarterbacking in regret, let's just be grateful you have these problems now, and you're getting the consciousness to actually do something about it. Because at the end of the day, all of us have, at this explicit moment, if any of your listeners pause and say, what are the biggest problems in my life? Okay. And consider this statement, and it could piss people off, or it could be like, whoa, but we get the perfect problems that we need at the level of development at which we are currently at. Okay. Those problems are there in a reflection of the level of development you're at. So how can we just be gentle with that and be like, oh, okay, this is awesome. And I love what Mark Manson said, who wrote Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. He said, let's not try to get rid of our problems. Let's try to understand that part of happiness and fulfillment is solving problems so that we can have better problems.
Yes, yeah,
Choose your
I like
problems.
that.
Choose your
Yes.
problems.
Yeah.
Let's get better problems. Okay, so now I don't have the problem of a divorce, but now I have the problem of figuring out what I'm going to do with my wife on that date on Tuesday, and if I can get a babysitter. That's a better problem.
Yeah, I would say so. That's a lot better problem, man. I love how you put that. That was so simple too.
And then one last little thing I want to say, it ties this idea of emotional intelligence to how a guy can put his needs like on the side, is this statement. And a buddy of mine, who's a divorce recovery coach, he says, let me see if I can nail this. He says, if you don't know, a man who doesn't know or a person who doesn't know their emotions can't get their needs met. Okay.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah, because you can't. There's
You
no.
don't know what's going on. And then Sue Johnson, who created EFT, she said, a person without connection to their emotions has no compass. I teach a very simple feedback mechanism to help a guy get the memo from an emotion: anger, fear, joy, and sadness. I'll give you an example of one. When I help a guy understand that fear is not a problem, it's your relationship with fear that's the problem. So ask yourself, and this is true 98% of the time, when you say to your fear, are you trying to keep me safe from something? 98% of the time, that fear is going to say, yeah, I'm trying to keep you safe. Safe from what? And you get to ask it. Safe from what? Safe from heartbreak, safe from divorce, safe from job loss, safe from. And so now suddenly I can be like, oh, cool. All right, well, now I can just focus. Now I know where to put my energy to work on the problem, because fear is giving me this great feedback mechanism. And I don't need to be so torn up with the emotion, and I actually got the data from the fear. And now I can look at like, oh, okay, how am I going to work on this? And there are some fears, like fear of heartbreak, that, I'll just say to my fear, I'll be like, I get it, bro, but that's life. We got to live with that one, and we're going to be okay, and we don't need to fear it. And that's just part of the equation of being human. And I notice that fear will just drop significantly, and I get to a place where it's like, I am feeling fear, I am not fear. So anyway, that's a top headline of how I'll help a man build emotional intelligence. And I have a similar system for anger, sadness, and joy, just to help guys get quick hits.
Yeah, and I mean, we're just basically came full circle there, where I mean, you know, to go off your book again, to have struggled in a relationship is to be human, you know. So
Right.
and if you're listening to this right now too, this is only the beginning of what is in the book. So if you're like, oh my gosh, this, you know, what he said just changed my whole outlook or perspective on what I have going on in my relationship right now, get the book. You can buy it on Amazon. You know, you just read it online or get it in the mail. And Stuart, I'd love to also ask you, where else can people find you best to kind of
Sure.
follow you, or if they do need or if they would like to
Sure.
kind of reach out?
Sure. First, I wanted to say, I don't know if you mentioned the title of the book. It's called Fixing You is Killing Me. And then the subtitle is A Conscious Roadmap to Knowing When to Save and When to Leave Your Relationship. But as far as learning about me, best way is my website, stuartmatola.com, StuartMotola.com. And, you know, if you're a YouTube person, I have over 160 videos on YouTube. You can just, you know, search my name, Stuart Matola, on YouTube. See a ton of titles. And the crazy thing is, you know, 40 to 50% of my mail list, email list, and viewers are women, because they're wanting to know how guys are wired. So I work primarily with men, but I do work with a lot of women who are wanting to understand men better. So
Yeah, I like that too. That they have an interest in it as well, because it's just affects them just as much.
yeah.
Yeah. So well, thank you for coming on. So I mean, this was awesome stuff. I'm so glad that we had a chance to chat about this, especially during you know, what's pretty much Men's Health Month too. I think this is really fitting to a lot of people. I know you just talking, I know of a lot of experiences in my head that I'm like, oh well, I could have done that, I could have done this, and you know, hopefully, just like you said, we could start here and just gently, you know, go forward. So
Yeah, the
thanks.
first step is for a guy to be willing to ask for help and get past his ego.
Yeah.
And say, yeah, I need support figuring this one out. But yeah, appreciate having the opportunity to be with you here.
Yeah, no problem, Stuart. I'm sure we'll see you down the road.
All right, thanks so much. Have a great day.
We